Jogo. Jogo was the strongest disaster curse we ever known to, as he survived the strongest domain in JJK, Infant Void. But in the Battle of Jogo versus Sukuna, Jogo able to give Sukuna an amazing fight, but at the end Sukuna used his fire arrow known as Fuga, that vaporized Jogo like how my mom burns me. Kino Nanami. Kino Nanami was one of the strongest grade 1 sorcerers we knew. His immense strength, experience, and ratio technique made him an incredibly dangerous fighter. However, after suffering severe injuries from Jogo's flames, Nanami was left exhausted and barely able to continue. In his weakened state, he encountered Mahito, who ultimately killed him with his idol transfiguration. Suguru Geto. Suguru Geto was one of the strongest special grade sorcerers and was also the best friend of Satoru Gojo. However, during his fight against Yuta and Rika, Geto was defeated by Yuta. Despite his injuries, Geto barely survived and lay beneath the shadow of a building. That's when Gojo found him. After everything Geto had done, including killing his own family and the villagers, Gojo knew there was nothing else he could do. In the end, Gojo had no choice but to kill his former best friend, Geto. Hanami. Hanami was one of the disaster curses and a powerful special grade curse spirit. During the Shibuya incident, when Gojo activated his 0.2-second domain expansion, Hanami was caught in the chaos alongside Jogo and Mahito. Gojo then used Infinity to crush Hanami against a wall, ultimately killing him. Toji Zenin. Toji Zenin was known as the failure of the Zenin clan because he had no cursed energy. However, they didn't realize that Toji was born with a heavenly restriction, which traded his cursed energy for an insane physical state. But when Toji killed Riko, everything changed. Gojo became extremely angry, allowing him to learn RCT. By combining Reversal, red with amplified blue, he created Hollow Purple, which ended the story of the feared failure of the Zenin clan. Next upcoming JJK character deaths are manga spoilers. If you haven't read the manga or want to avoid spoilers, you can skip this. Hajime Kashimo. Hajime Kashimo was the strongest sorcerer of the Edo era of jujutsu. However, when he died, his dream of fighting the strongest vanished until Kinjaku reincarnated him in a vessel. After seeing Sukuna, he rushed at him without fear. Using his mythical beast amber form, he was able to damage Sukuna, but in the end, Sukuna killed him with a world-cutting slash. Ryu Ishigori. Ryu Ishigori was a reincarnated sorcerer from the Edo era, known for his incredible cursed energy output. After his intense battle with Yuta and Rika, Ryu was left heavily wounded. After that, he encountered Sukuna and fearlessly stared him directly in the face. However, Sukuna ultimately ended his life by slicing him with Dismantle. Kinjaku. Kinjaku was the mastermind behind the Culling game. He had been living for over 1,000 years and had fought countless battles. But during the Culling game, while enjoying himself and fighting Takaba, Kinjaku experienced a sense of relief he had never felt in 1,000 years. However, that became his biggest mistake, as Yuta came from behind and caught him off guard, ultimately killing him. Gojo Satoru. Gojo Satoru was the strongest sorcerer of the modern era, possessing some of the most broken abilities in Jujutsu Kaisen, such as Hollow Purple and Infinity, which makes it nearly impossible for anything to reach him. In his battle against Sukuna, Gojo seemed to have the upper hand, but Sukuna used Maharaga to adapt to Gojo's domain expansion and eventually to Infinity. This adaptation allowed Sukuna to develop the world-cutting slash, which bypassed Infinity and ultimately killed Gojo. Ryaman Sukuna. Ryaman Sukuna was the strongest sorcerer in the history of Jujutsu, having lived since the Heian era. After taking over Megumi's body, Sukuna gained full access to the 10 Shadows technique, giving him the power of Maharaga. During the showdown between Gojo and Sukuna, Sukuna came close to death, but with Maharaga's adaptation, He survived and eventually defeated Gojo. He then returned to his true Heian-era form. When Kashimo rushed in to fight him like a beast, Sukuna eventually killed him as well. After that, Yuji and Yuta took over the fight, with many other sorcerers joining the battle, though several of them died. But after countless black flashes, Yuji finally managed to separate Megumi from Sukuna, and Sukuna was ultimately defeated after being turned into a doe-like form.